its subsidiaries, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Health and Wellness Monday, and our topic for today is the generational impact of cancer. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive F5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, I spoke with Dr. Nia Bailey, and she talked about Letters to My Sister, a breast cancer documentary for young women. Head on over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio, and stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, courage doesn't always come loud. Sometimes courage is a little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow. Here is your trending topic for today. According to Chicago WLS, today is the day that parents across Chicago area rejoice. It is official. CPS students had returned to school on today. Chicago Teachers Union staff are already welcoming the students into the classroom. If you feel like this day has come earlier, then you are right. Chicago Public Schools traditionally normally starts after Labor Day weekend, but the board members last year opted for a new schedule that would align with the academic calendar of other suburban districts. The CTA was offering free rides today for buses and trains for available students through grades K through 12, and they had to be enrolled in the Chicago Public School, charter schools, or even private schools in the Chicago area. So welcome back all of the students who had their first day of school today. That is your trending topic for today. We are so grateful for our sponsor on today. We have Pastor Michael Richardson with the Emanuel Church of God in Christ, and they have a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emanuel COGIC at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emanuel COGIC-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson, and we're from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
If you are tuned in on any form of social media, like the show, share the show, invite someone else in on the show that you feel may benefit from this valuable information. Our topic, the generational impact of cancer. By 1970, cancer was the second leading cause of death in the U.S. And on December 23rd in 1971, President Richard Nixon signed the National Cancer Act into law, providing the National Cancer Institute with an expanded authorities and responsibilities through the development of the National Cancer Program. So this year marks year 50 of the passage of the National Cancer Act. And so what did the National Cancer Act produce? What have we seen that we can attribute to the National Care Act? Well, it says they accomplished enormous things, such as with the National Cancer Institute, they created programs that expand clinical trials, and we know how important clinical trials are to cancer as well as other diseases that are out there. They support and develop systems that collect data and storage of comprehensive patient data. So I guess they have done something in their 50 years, but let's fast forward it to the 50 years. And in the US, 1 in 2 women and 1 in 3 men will develop cancer in their lifetime. And cancer is still the second leading cause of death in the US. So have we made progress? I think that's still to be determined. So the generational impact of cancer. All cancers develop because something goes wrong in your system, right? I always say a gene goes rogue in your system and it causes your body not to function as it should. So normally cells are multiplying and dividing. And if they multiply and divide right, they go through the normal cell cycle, life cycle. But if they go rogue and turn into a cancer gene, then they just keep multiplying and dividing over and over and over. And sometimes that's how cancer can grow so quickly, is because these cells are dividing and growing at a rapid rate. And they call this a gene mutation, either a gene fault or a gene mutation. And so this mutation, it stops your body from working properly, and then it grows into cancer uncontrollably. How do you get the gene mutation? Where does the gene mutation come from? Well, some people, it could be an inherited gene that comes from your parents. And then sometimes it can actually be the lifestyle. So is cancer a genetic disease? Yes, it is. It's a genetic disease. But when you think about only 5 to 10% of people who are diagnosed with cancer have a hereditary link. So that means the other 90 to 95% is lifestyle, it's the environment. So it's something that we're doing. I remember asking my doctor, like, where did this cancer come from? Because I figure, like, I'm doing all these things right. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm within my right weight class, I'm not overweight. Like, what is this? I'm active. So how can cancer happen if I'm doing all of these things that they say decrease your risk of cancer, but then cancer still happens? And I say you could be doing everything right and cancer can still happen, because a gene can go rogue in your system and you not know it until you get tested or you get diagnosed with cancer. So cancer-related genetics can occur because it could be, again, a random mistake in your DNA that causes cells to multiply, or our DNA gets altered by carcinogens, which you could be smoking. If you're working in like a factory that has like a lot of chemicals, it could be from the sun. It could be something that we get from the environment or our behavior. It could be inherited from one of our parents. We know we get genes from both of our parents, but when you're born, you don't know if you're getting healthy genes or if you're getting a gene that's damaged. And sometimes you don't know until that gene is turned on. And a lot of times it is turned on by lifestyle. So it says most cancers are caused by genes that are faulty or a gene mutation that develop over our lifetime. And they usually say cancer is for individuals who are older. Like when I was growing up, you would hear that if somebody had cancer, you would hear that it was an older person that had cancer, right? It wouldn't be somebody young. It would be very rare that you hear that somebody young had cancer. It would always be somebody older. So you always thought, oh wow, this couldn't happen to me because I'm not old yet, right? So it usually happens as we get older, and the cells mistakenly, as they're dividing, they go rogue, and it happens because of our exposure to different things, right? Your body is supposed to operate in a certain manner, but if you're not fueling your body with what it needs, you're not getting the right sleep, you're not eating the right foods, you're stressing, a lot of those things can contribute to your immune system being suppressed. And when it's suppressed, it can allow a lot of things to happen. Sometimes you see a lot of people that always have a cold, they're always really sickly. And you're like, man, what's going on? You have to be able to build your immune system up. So when these things come about, your body can fight them off, because we already have a system in our body that's supposed to fight off these different diseases. When something presents itself that's not supposed to be there, our body is supposed to fight it off. That's just like when COVID just happened, right? Everybody started, trying to get healthy, doing their vitamin C. We was trying to making sure that we get the right things in our body so that we wouldn't get COVID. Well, we should be doing that all year round, not just when something like that presents itself. So these genes normally, when we get when the genes go rogue, it says these genes don't affect all the body cells, but they are not inherited and they can't be passed on to our children. So you have some genes in your body that go rogue, and you get them from your parents, but they don't cause cancer. So you have some, but they don't cause cancer. And then those are called acquired mutations. So acquired mutations is something that may be sporadic. They don't know why it happened, or it could be attributed to lifestyle, but it may not have anything to do with your parents or you having an inherited risk. So a family history of cancer, is that something to be worried about? It says most people who have a relative with cancer will not have that inherited mutation gene. You won't. Again, remember I said 5 to 10% of people who get cancer from an inherited risk, and then the other 90 to 95, it's something that we did or something in the environment. So cancer, again, mostly occur in older people. It's a common disease. It's like a common cold. I know it's when people get it, it's like it's not when you get a cold, you're like, oh, I got a cold. I just, I'm gonna fight off for a couple of days. But it's common. When you talk to somebody, 1 in 2 people will be diagnosed with cancer. We have a 50% chance when we're born to be diagnosed with cancer. So many families, you will have at least one person in your family that that has cancer or have had cancer. And having relatives with cancer, again, it doesn't mean that you're going to get cancer. It doesn't mean that cancer runs through your family if you have different family members that have cancers. It says in families with an inherited or faulty gene or gene mutation, there's usually a pattern of a specific type of cancer running in the family. So the strength of the family cancer, it depends on who in your family had cancer, what type of cancer they had, how old were they when they were diagnosed, how closely related and the relatives are to each other. So the more relatives who have the same type of cancer and they are being diagnosed younger, then the stronger your family history is. So it's not like, oh, okay, Uncle Johnny got it, he was 89, then, Uncle Louis got it, he was 50. Like, if they're getting it at a younger age and it's a specific, everybody's getting kidney cancer, it's a specific type of cancer, then you can say, yes, you have a strong history of cancer in your family that was most likely caused by an inherited faulty gene. So with the 90 to 95%, they have their roots in environment and lifestyle, which means when it's caused by lifestyle, that's something that you can change. That's something that you can work on. That's something that you can try to alter or decrease your risk versus it being an inherited risk, which is nothing you can really do about it. You can get the doctors to monitor it, but they said the lifestyle factor includes cigarette smoke, fried foods, red meat, alcohol, sun exposure, environmental pollutants, infections, obesity, physical inactivity. We're supposed to be moving. We're supposed to be exercising at least 150 minutes a week or 30 minutes a day. You're supposed to be getting some type of exercise, even if it's just walking. You don't even have to get a gym membership. You could go to YouTube and pull up some videos and you can work out right in your home. But we're supposed to be getting some type of activity every single day, at least 5 days a week. At least 5 days a week. And then also stress. A lot of times we don't attribute stress to diseases, but yeah, I believe that my cancer was caused by stress. At the time that I was diagnosed, a year, 2 before I got diagnosed, I was really in a stressful situation. And I just believe that it allowed my immune system to be suppressed to where, we all have the cancer, we all have cancer cells in our bodies, but it just, what we do, our lifestyle that triggers it. I heard this saying that says, your family, your lifestyle. No, it says you have the gun and the gun is loaded. So the bullet is out. Forget it. I can't even remember what it said. I should have wrote it down. It says that your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Okay. So the gun is loaded. There it is. The gun is loaded. And so as long as the gun is loaded and you're not doing anything to pull the trigger with your lifestyle, it's not going to go off. But once you start doing stuff to trigger it or pull the trigger, then the gun will go off. So we have to make sure that we are not triggering our bodies to cause these things to happen. There you go. I should have wrote it down. I didn't know I was going to say it though. All right. So how can you find out if you have a gene mutation? What do you like? What would happen in your body to know that, oh, wow, I have this gene mutation, and what am I supposed to do about it? Hey, Lisa, thank you for joining. Like, how do you find out that you have a gene mutation? Well, if you have different people with cancer in your family, and again, they're going to do counseling first, so you can get genetic counseling. And the genetic counseling will have someone to sit down, a counselor, and talk to you about information about your family, cancer in your family. They're going to actually do a tree. And the tree is going to have the people in your family, your father's side, your mother's side, and it's going to have, highlight the people who had cancer. You're there in the middle because they're trying to see if this is an inherited risk. Like, do you really need to have, genetic testing? Because you do the counseling first and then the testing will come after that. So they're going to determine if you need to get genetic testing. You may not. Once they ask you a bunch of questions to see, if cancer is an isolated incident in your family, or are these specific types of cancer where they're being diagnosed young and these are rare cancers. So they're going to say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get genetic testing, which involves examining your DNA. And they're going to try to figure out if you have any changes, any type of mutations that will cause you to have cancer or any type of illness. Now they have, once you take the test, it could be a swab, it could be a blood test. It just depends on how they do it at that time. And it takes a while to come back. It takes about 6 weeks to come back for them to give you the results. And then, so once you get the results, they're going to tell you if you are BRCA1 positive or BRCA2. So it's either 1 or 2. That's going to determine what type of cancers that you get. And that information, you need to take it and give it to your family members. So don't keep that information for yourself. Take that information, give it to your family members so that they can be aware of what's going on in the family when it relates to cancer. It says most genes most commonly affected in hereditary breast cancer and ovarian cancer are breast cancers, which is the BRCA1 and 2. So it depends on what type. If it's the 1 or the 2, you have either a higher or a lower chance of getting the breast cancer and ovarian cancer. Most people who are getting this information, they are using it to be proactive. So you can use this information to be proactive. I always mention Angelina Jolie, who mom had breast cancer and she got tested for the gene. She tested 87% that she would get breast cancer. There was a chance for her to get breast cancer and 56% chance that she would get ovarian cancer. So she opted to get, she got a double mastectomy with reconstructive surgery. And then later on, she ended up getting a hysterectomy. So you do what you want to do with the information, but the information is there to let you know what are your chances of getting cancer and what type of cancers there are. So you can be empowered and you can take action, or you can, even if you don't get the surgeries, you can set up some type of maybe increased screening with your doctor to say, okay, I need to maybe get a mammogram twice a year or whatever. Maybe if it's ovarian cancer, you need to get screening more often. The doctor needs to be watching you so that if something happens, you can catch it in the early stages. And we always say early detection saves lives. They want to be able to catch that cancer at that 0 stage, that 1 stage. They want to be able to catch it so that it's easier for them to treat it. If you catch it early, again, you may not even have to have surgery. You may not have to have chemo. You may just have to have radiation. You may just have to have surgery just to get rid of it and nothing else. But if they're catching it in those later stages, 3 and 4, we already know 4 is terminal, right? You get diagnosed with stage 4, it's terminal. That means it has spread it to distant parts of your body, your lung, your brain, and your bones, and they are only treating you to keep the cancer at bay, right? But it's not taking the cancer fully away, right? You always, once you're diagnosed with stage 4, they're always going to keep you at the stage 4. And we know, I know a lot of people who were diagnosed with stage 4 that's been around for a long time, and don't have any evidence of disease because of the medicine that they're taking and the treatment that they're doing. So you don't want to get to a stage 4. You don't want to get there. You want to be able to catch it early. And with the BRCA1 and BRCA2, it gives you that information. So if you want to find out what your risk is, find out if you have any gene mutation, then that is the best thing for you to do. Now, your doctor may say, oh, you don't need to do that because you're not at an increased risk. Well, sometimes if you just want to know, then you have to push and advocate for yourself, especially if you're younger and you may have some people in your family that have cancer, but it may not be a significant increased risk for you, but it's still somebody. You have to advocate for yourself and push so that you can get it done. See if your insurance will allow it and get it done, or find out how much it costs and get it done yourself. And it will empower you to make decisions on, do I need to be proactive about my health? Do I need to have any type of surgeries? And there are some women out there who have done this, and it gives them a peace of mind knowing that, okay, I did something to decrease my risk of cancer. And it's not a lot of things that we can do for sure that would decrease our risk, but it would decrease it down to a significant risk to where you're not in, you're below that average risk. So I was looking up the generations when it comes to the US. So we have 6 different generations. We have the greatest generation, the silent generation. We have the baby boomers, Generation X, the millennials, and then we have Gen Z. And when you think about all of the different generations and the impact of cancer, you know that it hit each generation differently, and it was handled differently, even in how we shared the news with our families. A lot of times back in the great generation, and even in the baby boomer generation, the silent generation, they probably didn't even tell you that they had cancer, or people had cancer in the family. Like, they kind of kept it quiet and dealt with it themselves. So whether you have a inherited impact or behavior impact or an environmental impact, it's still something that you can do about it. You don't have to just figure like you're a ticking time bomb. So what generation has the highest cancer rate? According to the American Cancer Society, it says the millennials, people born between 1980s or the 90s, have a double risk of some type of cancers compared to the baby boomer risk. Theirs is due to age. So they're saying that the older, with baby boomers, if you're older. So millennials have the highest. That was shocking to me. Also, the average life expectancy when it comes to baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z are different. So compared to the 70-year life span for the baby boomers and the 85-year life span for the Gen X, Gen Z is predicted to have a life expectancy to live past 100. I was like, wow. They said it's due to them being self-conscious, being health conscious, us progressing medically, and the standard of living. And so I was trying to figure out, like, health conscious, that could be, I'm thinking like, because COVID happened. So when COVID happened, it kind of like made people think about, their health more, taking care of themselves, what they're putting in their bodies. So it could have a lot to do with that. It could have a lot to do with self-care. I know that generation is kind of like carefree. They don't let stuff stress them as much. Like with our generation or our parents' generation, it's all about working. A lot of times you neglect yourself. You taking care of everybody else. You putting off your appointments, going to the doctor until you absolutely have to. So I think that has a lot to do with that. It'll attribute a lot to that. And think about your behavior. What can you do with your behavior to change or to decrease your risk of cancer. If you know that smoking causes cancer, then I know smoking is addictive because my dad smoked since he was 15 and he passed away at 71. And I can remember my mom saying that the doctors told him like 25 years before he passed, they told him, we see a spot on your lungs, you may want to stop smoking. And he did try. I remember him trying to do the patch. I remember him doing the gum. I remember him just trying to quit, but he was never successful at doing it. But if you're able to quit, get some help, because we know that lung cancer, and then and secondhand smoke, we know that it causes cancer. And then also secondhand smoke, if you are living with someone that smokes and you inhaling it, you can also get lung cancer from secondhand smoke. Lisa said, I had 2 types of cancers at the same time. One was stage 2 and the other one was stage 4. Thank God I have been cancer free for 13 years. See, I told you there are some people with that stage 4 cancer that are living a long life. That's crazy though. 2 types of cancer, and she's still here. God is good. So some of the things you can do to impact your behavior, I mentioned not smoking. If you're going to be out in the sun, make sure that you have some sunscreen on. If you know that the doctor has said you need to lose some weight, do what you have to do to lose that weight. Get to a weight that's healthy for you. That's what I want to say, because they have these standards of the weight class of where we should be, and I really think it's outdated. So get to a place to where you're at a weight to where you feel healthy. And if you're drinking, I would say really cut down on the drinking, because there are a lot of studies out about alcohol and cancer, alcohol causing cancer. And not to mention the generational impact on cancer, just basically getting a cancer diagnosis, the impact that it has on you, the impact that it has on your family. Like a lot of times you're so wrapped up in you're going through the cancer. We get so wrapped up and we get tunnel vision just trying to get through the treatment. And a lot of times, we forget about our families. We forget that, they're dealing with this too. They're grieved that we're diagnosed with this, and they have to watch us and see us go through this, right? Because I remember just watching my father. He had never been sick, never been in the hospital, never seen him sick. Like, he worked on his job. He drove a garbage truck, never missed a day. Cold, hot, always there, So when this happened, it was like to see him just, this big man just dwindle down and just be helpless. And, it took a lot out of me. I believe that I still haven't grieved my dad's death, because part of me, when he was going through, like, I was just getting out of my treatment. And then here he is diagnosed, and I'm like, oh, wow. Like, wow. And then to find out that my mom was like, oh, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer before that. Did we know? Did me and my siblings know? No, because he didn't say anything. Right? So a couple of years before my diagnosis, I was diagnosed in 2013. So he was diagnosed with prostate cancer before that, did the treatment, everything, never said anything. And then in 2016 is when the lung cancer happened. And I'm just like, I don't know how you would keep that to yourself. Like, that's a lot. It's a lot of stress emotionally, like physically. That's a lot of weight to be on you. So I wouldn't say keep it to yourself, because I feel like you're cheating the people that love you and not giving them a chance to help you. I know sometimes when you have a cancer diagnosis, you feel helpless. You feel like, I don't want people treating me like, I'm this weakling, or looking at me with shame, or because some people do. But if you have genuine people around you that love you and that wants the best for you, then they should know. So when something happens, God forbid you do pass, there could have been time spent with the family, quality time spent with the family. Yeah. So when they told us that he had the lung cancer, for some reason, my mom and them just said, okay, we're going to tell him that. We're going to break the news to the kids that he has lung cancer. The doctor said that he has 6 months. And that was in January. And then by April, he passed. And I remember him saying before he came home, he was like, he told my sister, he said, she was like, oh yeah, you coming home? And he was like, nope, when I leave here, I'm going to the cemetery. And she was like, what? And he was like, nothing. He tried to brush it off, but he meant that. He meant that he wasn't coming home. He kind of knew. And my mom said a lot of times he would just like lock himself in the room, because he didn't want to be bothered. I think, like I said, this was a big man. This was a man that, he worked, provided for his family. We never wanted for anything. And then all of a sudden, you in this helpless spot to where, you have to depend on people. And, I always think about just, he used to have me to shape up his beard, right? And I used to always think about this one time. The first time I did it, I disconnected his sideburns from his, like I disconnected them. And he was like, what you just do to my beard? I used to like dye his beard because he would never want to be gray. So the first time I did it, I disconnected his sideburns from his beard. He was so mad and we laughed about it. But I was just like, oh, I didn't know you wanted to. He was like, you're not supposed to, that it all goes together. I was like, oh, okay. So I had when he was doing the chemo, he wanted me to shave his head and he wanted me to shave his beard. So that was my last time doing it. And I could just hear my mom saying that, like he would lock the door and she could hear him crying, and I always think about like the silent cries of my father because he didn't want nobody to see him crying. He, who does? He was facing death and he knew he was facing death. And so, it was a hard pill to swallow. And so the reason why I'm giving you this information is so that you can be proactive with your health. Early detection matters. Kenya said that's the hardest part, especially when you're independent. Yeah. My father was very independent, very. And to just witness him dwindle. Yeah, okay. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. Tune in next Monday right here on Intellectual Radio. I will leave you with these words of wisdom. When we embrace uncertainty, it can be liberating. If you can accept uncertainty, it allows you to live every day. So live every day on purpose. Be intentional about your life, about your health, because you only get one. So join me next Monday right here on Intellectual Radio at 6 p.m. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next at 7 p.m. is The People Show with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas. As always, Warriors Talk is changing lives one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1 on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on IntellectualRadio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.